Welcome to the Halifax Real Estate Podcast. I'm Jason Paul, a realtor in Halifax, Nova Scotia at eXp Realty, and I'm here to help you gain a better understanding of real estate in Halifax. Today's guest is my close friend, Chris Johnson, a first-time home buyer who wants a better understanding of the home buying process, what's happening in the Halifax real estate market, and so much more. Please welcome Chris Johnson. Hey Chris, how are you?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm good. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's been way too long.
I know, eh? So you're a first-time home buyer who doesn't know anything about real estate, and you're trying to buy a house, and you got some questions for me.
I fit in that category beautifully. Yeah.
This is gonna be weird because usually it's me asking the questions. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of role reversal where you've got questions about how to buy a house, whether to invest or not, and the different strategies. And it's weird because you're asking me things. It's different for the.
Hey man, it's good to do new dynamics,
right?
That's huge.
We're switching it up. So okay, what are you thinking about? Okay, where do you want to start in the home buying process?
Does your credit get dinged?
Yes. Your credit will get dinged.
Okay.
If you go for a pre-approval, it'll be a small ding. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you go to get pre-approved for a mortgage, they have to check your credit score because you have to be above certain criteria. I think the lending of a high ratio mortgage provided by Genworth and CMHC and Canada Guarantee, or Scotia as it's called now, is, I want to say they raised it to 650 credit score, but you'd have to, don't quote me on that. You have to call I have to call a mortgage broker, but you do get dinged.
Okay, good answer. Yeah, man. No, I do love the real estate game. I wish, like many people, I'd have gotten into it a lot earlier, but you can't predict the future.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking about this, maybe 2 years ago now when we went house hunting,
buddy.
And hindsight's 2020, but it would have been nice.
Do you know what's really funny about you being on the podcast is you're actually the inspiration for the podcast.
Interesting.
I've never told you this.
No.
We were at I've told a lot of people the story of where the idea came from, but you were my reason for creating the Halifax Real Estate Podcast.
Do tell.
So you were at my house for our old apartment in South End. We were having a party, as we did back then all the time, and you came over to me with a drink in hand, and you took a long sip of your drink, and you were like, "Jay, how's the market?" As everyone does with a realtor. And I said, "It's great. You should buy," because in March 2019, the market was going up, but nowhere near like it is now. It was going up. Maybe it was gaining momentum. You were seeing growth. And you took the longest drag of your drink, finished it, looked me in my eye, and you go, they're too expensive, and you walked away.
Yeah, it sounds like me.
And from there, it was, I used you, because no one wants to be I realized no one wants to be the uneducated person in a conversation with a salesman, right? And we're best friends, we know that. Right. And I realized that I don't want to be a salesman, but how can I help my friends who don't really understand a lot about real estate? So then I started putting out educational social media content for a few months back in if you were to go on my Instagram profile and go to July, August, September 2019, you're going to see the worst real estate content you've ever seen in your life. It's terrible. Roll into November, December 2019. I was trying to think of a way to make the content consumable. And I was really into the Breakthrough Real Estate Investment podcast out of Ontario, Hamilton, done by Sandy McKay and Rob Brake. And I was like, I could do a podcast. And then the Halifax Real Estate podcast idea came in December 2019. And you were actually in the apartment with me when I was figuring out during lockdown.
Yeah, man. When you hit the button, I was here.
Yeah.
I will say though, when you brought up the idea of the podcast, I was like, yes, they don't teach you this in school at all, along with credit cards and what else. So to your point,
I need you in.
I'm in. So to your point, When you came up with this idea, I was like, huge. That is a huge idea.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I've learned from real estate in the past, like it's not my complete passion. You know, it's obviously a great way to make passive money or to, you know, buy a house.
Yep.
But without being taught it in school, it's like you just get pitched these like cheesy like education about it. And the way you come about it, it's more kind of like you said earlier, you're helping out a friend, right?
That's all I wanted.
It's very genuine.
That's all I wanted. Because you were at the time you were renting a really nice apartment at the time. And I was like, you're losing money, you're losing equity. Go get a house. Because I knew I know how successful you are with your stocks and you're investing in other avenues and you're an entrepreneur. And I was like, you can definitely just get in here and build some equity. It just so happened that the market took off like a rocket. So my advice in 2019 really makes me look smart.
Yeah.
But I wasn't forecasting what had happened. So yeah, you were actually the like inspiration for this whole thing, which is just really funny because yeah.
Well, you're welcome. You should have pinned me down and were like, okay, bye.
I did. I had you.
Yeah, you did.
I did pin you down and you still haven't pulled the trigger.
It's funny. I walked by one of those places we see every day. We went and saw that you showed me. And I was like,
yeah, they sell like double now.
Damn.
They sell double what it was for.
No, I believe it.
Okay, so I guess if we're talking about first time home buyer, the fundamental question is, what do you do for a living? And the reason why I'm asking it this way is because we're going to break down what you need to do to get yourself in order to buy a house. And we'll go through like the step-by-step process of how to buy a house. And then you can just pick and choose questions as you go through there. So what do you do for a living?
I work for an oceanographic company. I guess my role would be technical product analyst.
Okay. So have you been with them longer than 3 months?
Correct.
Okay. So typically speaking, if you're employed by a business or an individual, you need to pass the probationary period of 3 months to be able to get a mortgage, right? If you are self-employed or are an entrepreneur individual, because I know those are also your side hustles. If you are relying on those to produce your income, you would need 2 years of proven revenue and 2 years of taxes done under the entrepreneur or self-employed revenue streams. So very different criteria. So if you are currently employed by a business and you're thinking about going the self-employed route shortly, my advice, buy first. It's much, much easier to get a mortgage from a bank because they look at the 3-month probationary period and the employed individual by an established business as a much safer bet than the self-employed individual because most businesses fail in the first 5 years.
So it's 3 months.
3 months. 3 months probationary period.
I thought it was much bigger than that.
No. If someone got hired by a bank tomorrow, they'd wait 3 months and then they can pull a trigger. If the debt ratios and everything else works out for the mortgage, then they can pull the trigger.
Okay, and so the entrepreneurial route, working for yourself, it's just inconsistent and the bank doesn't know how much you're going to make.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why they want everything on paper because they want to understand how much you actually bring in and that's why they want 2 years to show that you have proven consistent income for a longer period of time. Because like if you're working for a TD, how long has TD been in business for? Like they're not going out of business.
No.
If you look for a restaurant, like that, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of other established businesses that they understand are staples.
So would the bank ever look at, say you work for a company full time for 2 years, 3 months? Would they ever look at the company and be like, this company just isn't established enough? Would they take it into consideration? No? Okay.
No. Not that I've heard, but I haven't had a buyer come from a startup be like, I just got hired by a new startup, blah, 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 blah. Like I haven't had that example yet. So that would be a question for a mortgage broker or your bank. But like, as far as I understand, when you are employed by an individual or a business, it is the 3 month probationary period you have to get through. So you check that off, right? So your next step would be talking to a mortgage broker or your bank about getting a pre-approval. There are certain things you need. So they would ask you if you have a 5% down payment, right? Because you need a minimum 5% down payment to cover, to be able to purchase the house. So that's, if it's $200,000 purchase price, it's $10,000 down payment. Then you also need the 2% closing costs. So that covers your 1.5% transfer tax in the province of Nova Scotia, and the 0.5% typically covers your lawyer fees. So 7% total. The 5% down payment gets you a high ratio mortgage, which adds an extra $8,000 onto your monthly onto your mortgage. So that's an extra payment that'll be included, because to get how it worked back in the 80s was you needed 20% down to buy a house, back when they were super cheap and mortgage rates were at like 10, 11, 12%. So people couldn't come up with $10, $20, $30,000 for down payments for 20%. So they were like, can we figure this out? Banks offered 5% down, but they wanted to have on that mortgage insurance, which is why you have to pay that extra expense. To avoid the mortgage insurance expense, you need 20% down. You get me?
Yeah. So, and you can put down as much as you want. You put down 30% if you want
100%. You can pay cash if you want. If you have cash and you want to put it all in the house, do it. You can do it. Yeah. It's a minimum requirement, right? One funny thing about banks and mortgage rates, they offer the lowest rates to the insurance products because you're insured. So if you foreclose, the mortgage insurance companies are going to make them whole anyway.
Interesting.
It's funny how it works.
Yeah.
You're thinking, eh?
Oh yeah, there's a lot to think about here.
So like the other thing that they're going to look at is your debt ratio. So how much you make. I'm not going to ask you how much you make because we're not going to get into that. But they're going to look at how much you make, and they're going to look at what your debt services are. So do you have major car payments in your name? Do you have lines of credits that are maxed out? Do you have student debt? Do you have car debt? Do you have credit cards maxed out? Do you make your payments? Do you have bills in collections, right? Are you post due on stuff? Because they want to know. Banks use credit as a way to verify your character. Does this person make payments on time? As soon as you have debt in your name, that's going to go against your purchasing power. So if you were able to purchase up to $400,000 for a mortgage, if you have a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 car loan, that amount's going to go down because that's debt against you, and that takes away from your monthly expenses. So that's why they look at the debt ratio. The other thing they do is they look at the qualifying rate for the mortgage. So they want to make sure that if right now everyone thinks that the latest conspiracy theory is that it's not a good time to buy right now because mortgage rates are so low that when rates go up in 2 or 3 years time, the bubble's going to pop, the market's going to crash, and you're going to be able to purchase houses for cents on the dollar. Latest thing I've seen on Reddit. The only thing with that theory is that there are two rates that the bank uses to qualify you. They're going to give you the mortgage rate that they're offering. So right now it's like a 1.8, 1.9, or 2%. To qualify for a mortgage, they have to qualify you at a 5.75% rate as of today, because they want to make sure that when rates go up inevitably, that you can still cover the mortgage. So you're actually getting approved at 5.75%.
So it like future-proofs you.
Exactly.
Wow.
So they incorporated that after the 2008 market crash. And then after the on June 1st, 2021, the Canadian government just came to the conclusion that the real estate market in Canada was too hot. So what they did was they increased the qualifying rate up to 5.75%. From what I think it was 5.5 or maybe even 4. I can't remember. I don't know. You have to ask a mortgage broker again for that. Once again, like non-mortgage broker people, I'm a realtor who has a fairly good understanding of this stuff because I ask a lot of questions. But like if you like, we're talking about mortgages here, so please refer to a mortgage broker or your bank.
Listen, better than your average Joe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they raised it up to 5.75% to kind of pour cold water over the market,
right?
Because it hurt some people's buying power, right? So it was their way of saying, pouring cold water, saying this thing needs to slow down, it's too hot. And that's where we're at today, is you have to qualify at the 5.75% rate, which once again, like you said, it future-proofs you. So the Canadian government and banks have come out and said they're not going to increase rates dramatically over the next 2 years to deal with what's happening today. So you're safe there. But even if they start to come up again to like a 2, 3, 4%, which they might, you just never know what they're going to do, you're safe because you're still qualified at the 5.75%.
So is there any point like in the recent past where it's gone up to like 6, 7? No.
When I got into real estate in 2017, rates were at 3.5 and 3.
Okay.
I haven't been in since they were at 6 or 7 or 8. All I know is I remember when it went down to 3 or 2.5 in like 2017, 18, everyone being like, these are the lowest ever. They're practically giving away money.
Yeah.
And then at the peak of the pandemic, they were like 1.5, 4, 2, 3, 1. And then
Wild.
they were literally giving away money where it was lower than the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
So
That's incredible.
They were literally giving away money to buy houses back in like even 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now, that qualifying rate's in there. Interest rates have come up like creeped up like a little bit.
Right.
But that would be what I know about mortgages. So that's what your first step is to figure out what you're pre-approved for. And then you need your down payment, which down payments can be, you can have it. You can get it gifted to you by a family member. You can borrow it. By borrowing it, you can take out, maybe you have access to a large line of credit and you just want to use that because you can't save up the money. You can do that. But when you do that, understand that as soon as you pull the trigger, you just hurt your debt ratio. So you're actually hurting your purchasing power.
Wow. So, okay.
You know what I mean?
Double ding. Yeah, for sure. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and closing costs, down payment, and then like your your actual cost of purchasing a house, like you need your deposit. You need a deposit to buy a house. So typically they used to be around like $1,000, $2,000, but as we've moved into competition, the world that we're in now, you're seeing much more aggressive deposits. Like I've written offers with deposits of $50,000 because my clients had the money to be able to do that. To say that like, and all it is, the deposit is just a statement of intent. Right.
So so you put down $50,000, your mortgage payments every month would be less, right?
Yes, because you're putting up so much money.
Right.
Right. Now the deposit comes out of the down payment, so it's not an extra cost, which is really cool. So if you have a $5,000 down deposit, that is a part of your down payment. So if you're still buying that $200,000 house, when you have to cough up the down payment 2 to 3 to 4 days before you close, you only have to cough up another $5,000.
Okay. So you said 0.5% went to lawyer fees. 5% was down payment.
Yep.
What was the 1.5%?
Nova Scotia D transfer tax.
And that's kind of like
they just want your money.
Okay.
Nope. The governor of Nova Scotia wants your money.
So it's the exact same thing. You buy a car from and you still have to pay the taxes on it at Access Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah. They just want your money.
Yeah.
And fun fact, not every province, actually most don't have that.
What?
Most actually don't have it. Another fun fact, due to the rise in real estate transactions and rise in price points from 2020, the government of Nova Scotia, the deficit from COVID-19 wasn't as large as they originally had impacted from the money raised off the D transfer tax, because people are purchasing things at such an alarming high rate.
So blessing in disguise,
blessing
or what?
in disguise, I guess.
Wow. I mean, it's good for the province. Does it suck when you have to do it every
100%.
time? But I mean, for the greater good, right?
Right. Well, so like that one point, like typically, like the closing costs, you can't buy a house if you can't close it. So closing costs, your transfer tax and your lawyer fees. And like typically it's like 2% to like usually in around that ballpark number. So like, on a $200,000 purchase, for example, I think they're like $4,500. It's not, I know it's still like a lot of money to a lot of people, but it's still in the grand scheme of things. You just bought a $200,000 thing and you're only paying $4,500. So like down payment and closing costs together, you're at $14,500. And
it just makes sense.
And like you can check my math. That might be wrong. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So it might be like 13 or it might be 15, just depending on where it lands.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Please do. I'm not the smartest cookie. The other thing you have to look out for are inspections. Right? So those would be upfront costs. So if you're buying in the city and you're on municipal, for example, then I would always recommend a home inspection, and I'd always recommend getting your sewer line inspected. Now, a lot of people don't get their sewer line inspected because it's not as forthcoming as or as knowledgeable or as talked about as the home inspection. But here's the thing. How much construction goes on in this city?
Quite a bit.
Right? You don't think they ding a line Come on.
No, they
ding a line.
They ding some lines.
They ding some lines, right? And like we've talked about this in the past where I've had examples of clients buying houses. We did the sewer line inspection on the Halifax Peninsula, and it turned out Halifax Water dinged a line, plugged it up. It was 85% backed up. We caught it before it flooded, before it backed up into the basement.
Huge.
Which is why you do that inspection and why it's recommended. These things are recommended. You can buy them without doing them. That's fine. I'm going to ask you to sign a waiver so I don't get sued.
Right.
If you find out that your sewer line's messed up and or there is a deficit to your home that is worth a lot of money.
So let me ask you something. Would the seller ever do the buyer a solid and do all this for them?
Oh, it's really funny you bring that up. Actually, I do. Like when I do listings, when I list a house, it's part of the process where like we don't do the sewer inspection or like the septic inspection, but like we do the home inspection. I always get the home inspection done up front, and then I disclose everything the home inspection came up with. And here's the really funny thing. We give out the report before anyone writes an offer, and we disclose everything that we know of. And 9 times out of 10, people still get inspections.
Really?
They still do it. Yeah, because it's like people feel more comfortable when someone's in their corner, right? So if I'm the listing agent,
they want their own person.
Exactly. Yeah. I've hired the inspector for us and my sellers to understand what exactly product we're trying to sell to the market.
Right.
They get a checklist of things that need to be are recommended to be done by the home inspector. They'll go through the list and they'll say, we'll do this, this, and this. They might say they want to do the whole thing. They might say they don't want to do any of it. We price accordingly. And then as soon as we go to market, it's fully disclosed, hey, this was pre-inspected. The report is here if you want to have a look at it. If you have any questions, just ask. So yeah, it's not common practice yet, but I imagine I could see us going that way just because of disclosure statements. And you know what? Honestly, like it's you could say doing it a solid, and you can still sell a house without doing it, because right now in this market, because of how competitive it is, people are waiving inspections anyway. Right, so
just sight unseen,
sight unseen doesn't exist. We need to that is
we'll get to
I'm
that.
I'm gonna nip in the bud as soon as we get to it.
This is kind of like, not to bring it to cars again, but you get a car proof to make sure it hasn't been any accidents.
Yeah,
same type of due diligence.
You're there to protect yourself. If you are buying outside the city, then it's home inspection, septic inspection. Same thing. Think of it like the sewer line inspection. You're making sure that your excrement goes to where it needs to go. And then if you're on well water, you want to check the well water for both the water quality and the quantity. By quantity, it's called a flow recovery test, and you're going to get an inspector out to drain the well as quickly as possible to see how quickly it recovers. Because if you were out in the middle of nowhere, you want to make sure on a Saturday or Sunday when you got showers going, dishwashers going, your water in the lawn, you want to make sure that you still have a water and that it recovers quickly enough so you never run out, because you don't want to end up with a dry well, because how are you going to get water? And then you want to make sure Nova Scotia is known to have high levels of minerals in its water. So iron, manganese, arsenic, like they're all in there. It's just making sure that those water levels are under the recommended guidelines for health and safety. And if not, then you can put in water filtration systems. They're typically between $2 to $4 grand, which, like, if you come up with those problems, you can usually negotiate that with the seller and find a compromise. Now in this market, it's not like you can go back to the table and be like, hey, I need $4 grand for this. It's more like, hey, this is wrong. You've lived here for 25 years. Can I get 2? I'll eat 2, you eat 2. Because yet in this market, buyers don't have much leverage, because there's so few homes for sale,
right? That
all the leverage with the seller. So you have to find a way to come to some type of compromise. So the other thing I would always recommend is radon inspections. Yeah. Radon. Do you know anything about radon?
Yeah, my parents just had that put in the basement, where they put the hole through the cement in the basement, and then do the radon testing and stuff. Yeah,
so radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in Canada and of cigarettes. It's basically just decaying uranium in the soil and the earth, and the gas filters up. So Nova Scotia is known for being a hotbed for radon. You can go, there's a government map where you can check for the radon levels in the areas and neighborhoods that you're buying. Just go to, it's like Nova Scotia radon, Google Nova Scotia radon heat map. I don't think someone told me it's not a heat map. I know that. I know who you are. You listen to the podcast. You correct me once. I'm acknowledging it. But you can go check the levels of radon in the neighborhood you're buying a house. You can have deep red, orange, or yellow. Yellow, you're good. You're low to medium, moderate. Orange should get tested. Red, definitely get it tested. The thing with radon tests, though, is you can get like 3 to 5 day kits and get them tested, which is what a radon inspector would do. But they would just leave the kit in the basement to try and track how much random scientific levels of radon are in your basement. And then if you have high levels, it's just filtration system. You just have to figure out how to get that radon out of the home safely. So if you have, and that's just what the inspector would do. One thing with radon tests is they actually recommend a 3-month inspection to get an accurate reading. They can only do a 3 to 5 day test, which are still accurate, but they're not a full-fledged, they're not going to tell you the exact number. If you do a 3-month test, it'll give you exactly what you're looking for. The thing is, when we talk about the cost of these up front, home inspection and sewer liner for municipal is typically $500 to $750. Outside for like well water, well quality, quantity, home, sewer, radon, you're looking $1,000 to $1,500.
Okay, so it all adds up.
It all adds up very quickly.
Yeah.
I would call that step 1. Step 1's figuring out if you're going to buy a house. If you can't buy a house, steps 2, 3, 4, and 5 are useless.
So let me run us through step 1 more time, just regarding. So we're in a seller's market right now?
Hot seller's market.
Seller's market. So there's not a lot to buy. Is the government still offering the first-time home buyers?
I haven't heard.
You haven't heard?
No one. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, the Nova Scotia government used to offer the first-time home buyers program, which they would cover your 5% down payment in a 0% interest-free loan of up to $280,000. And you had 10 years to pay that thing back at 0 interest, and you could make up your own terms of how you're paying them back. That was as good as until last year, and then because usually they re-up or the amount of money allotted towards that program is usually comes again every March for the spring market. So when we were rolling into April 2020, that money was there. Just with the economic fallout of COVID, I haven't heard anything, and I would be surprised if they still have money for that.
They might have dipped into that fund.
They might have, that might go to something else.
But that being said, if they didn't, to buy a house for under $280,000 right now is also
unrealistic.
Yeah,
I mean, you can still do it in HRM, but the condition and quality is what I would say is a question. Because are they high quality homes? Probably not. And even then, you might end up still competing for them just because of the state of the market that we're in. And single family homes in this market are the hottest things on the market, which is what exactly that program is for.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm giving you a lot.
Yeah. I should have brought a notepad.
Yeah, well, whatever. I can finally have a referral thing for you to be like, buy a house.
Yeah, that's it.
Step 2 is finding it. So first step 1, you got to figure out if you can afford it. Step 2 is finding it, which means you got to go on. Everyone's on Viewpoint. Viewpoint's a great product, great tool. I recommend everyone use it. As realtors, we have access to something that's called the Collaboration Center. So we can take your search criteria and input it in our system called Paragon, and it's a live feed MLS system. So if we put in 400,000 HRM single family home, you're going to get a list of every home for sale in HRM that meets your criteria, and every home that comes to market that meets your criteria, you're going to get an email notification so that you're on top of it. The reason why it's really important to be on top of the market is because things are going so quickly and so fast that we have to get in the door as soon as possible. So if something comes to market today, the way the market's going in terms of how people are setting up the selling side, they only usually give 3, 4, 5 days to get in the house before all offers are due. So as soon as that thing comes up, we need to have a look at it online, see when offers are due, check our schedules, and make sure we can get you in the door. Once we're in the door, then it's down to if you like the house or not. You might not like the neighborhood. You might not like the paint. You may not like the layout of the house. Like all those things come into play because more often than not, people are buying houses to live in, right? it's a very personal thing. You're spending a lot of money, so we want to make sure you like the house. If you do like the house, then we go to work in terms of due diligence. So finding out what Nova Scotia Power is, property taxes, if it's on oil bills, propane bills, everything, all the monthly costs that we can get to figure out how this thing works. We're going to ask about property disclosure statements, which are filled out by the sellers to disclose any and all known defect that they're aware of in the home. Just wait and more as much information as possible so that you can write, if you want to write an offer, you get the most informed decision. Besides that, when you're searching for a home, the market dictates your experience. So if you're in a buyer's market, for example, which we haven't been in for a year or two now, it's much easier to buy a house because if you're walking down, give the example, if you're walking down a street, right? In a buyer's market, you have 5 homes on one street. You can, knock on the door, say, hey, I want to buy your house. Here's my price. They might say no, and you're like, I'm going to go next door and offer them the same money and they're going to take it. You want a deal or not? That where in seller's market that we're in, there's one house for sale on the street and there's 10 humans standing outside waving offers.
Yeah, that's what I want to get into that too. Like, people are offering far more than what it's.
Bring it.
Is it just like a bidding game?
It's
when it comes down to that.
It is in a sense. When you talk, the funny thing about value is that it's completely in the eye of the buyer. Buyers dictate everything. I've seen the stories of realtors are killing the market. We can only suggest a price, and yes, we are doing tactics to get and gain more interest in our properties. So that might be the style of photos you use. That might be the list price. So one strategy right now that's fairly common is listing below market value. So market value is dictated by comps, so comparables. Back to that idea of the one house on the street for sale. We as realtors will look at the comparables in the neighborhood to see what homes, similar shape, size, finishes, square footage, yard, location, and what have they sold for. And then we're going to figure out what number we think our listing is worth in today's market. Right now, a lot of people are listing undervalue to drive up competition to get that high bidding war and to get that price point of $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 over asking. It's not the greatest thing in the world to do, but honestly, our job, our fiduciary duty is to be the people, is to work on behalf of our clients. So if our client says we want the most money, this is an investment for us, we want the most bang for our buck on this sale, that's our job. Our job is to deliver that outcome as best as we can for our sellers. So therefore and listen, this is the best dynamic ever. I love it all the time. Buyers always want it for the cheapest. That same buyer, when they go to sell, wants to sell for the highest. It's the same friggin' thing.
Yep.
Yeah, every time. So how often do you think people are saying, we want the biggest bang for our buck? You're creating this dynamic that generates the most offers, because in that offers, someone's going to write something funny, right? So which is why we do low price. You got 4 days to get in. I when I'm listing right now, I make my clients get an Airbnb for 4 days. They're not in the house because I'm going to ruin their lives with how many people
in
go
and out.
Because they're gonna be like, oh, when do I go? How do I get there? And it's at the peak of this thing, people were seeing 40 to 50, 60, 70 viewings in 4 days in half an hour intervals.
Wow, man, that is wild.
It was wild, right? And in that 40, 50, 60, 70 viewings, you'd get a minimum 10 offers. I've competed as high as 27 others. So I was a 27th offer. I was competing against 26 other humans.
Jesus.
After three, right? 3 offers in hand.
Yeah.
It's just genuinely you're just trying to pick a number out of the sky.
So let me ask you. So is it kind of eBay auctions?
Yep.
Okay. You have 3 people bidding for a house that you put up for $400,000.
Yep.
One guy offers $400,000.
Yep.
Someone else offers $420,000.
Yep.
$430,000. Did the sellers choose?
Yep.
So they can say, okay, $420,000.
Yep. So all offers are due. So when I say that 4-day period, right, for viewings, after the 4 days, it'll be all offers due at 5 p.m. Presenting at 7 p.m. Presenting means as the listing agent, I'm showing the sellers all the offers in hand, right? So in those offers, typically, like in the listings I've done this year, the most I've gotten is 14 on one of my listings. Another one had 8, and then the other 2 didn't get any in that time period.
14 offers.
Yeah. So in the 14 offers, 8 or 9 were, the first 4 were in and around the list price. The next 4 were like $20,000-$30,000 above. Then 9 and 10 were 50, and then it went, and then 11, 12 were 75, and then the 14th was 125. Right? So that's typically what you see is like you want the competition to put pressure on the buyers, because it's like, and like this is another strategy I do when I'm listing and my client's goal is to get the most money. I try and put as much pressure on the buyers as possible to write a number. So when we're that 5 p.m. deadline, at 2 p.m. if I have an offer in hand, everyone who's shown the house gets an email notification, 1 offer in hand, and then you just roll them in. So then it's like 3 offers in hand, 4 offers in hand, 5 offers in hand, 8 offers in hand, 3 minutes left, 10 offers in hand, 12 offers in hand, 13 offers in hand, 10 minutes left, 16 offers in hand, right? You're there to crank it up.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to create an environment to get our client their best wishes.
Do you choose how many days?
Yeah.
It is.
You talked about that before. How many days you want them to sit on the market, how many days you don't.
What's the typical and what's the maximum? What's the minimum?
You can go as long as you want. Typically it's 4 to 5.
And everyone gets their chance if they get in within those 4 days.
If they get in with because I've once again on that flip side, I've had that where I've had buyers agents calling me like an hour before deadline, being like, "Hey, I need to get in it. I can't get in yet," and I'm like, "I'm fully booked." And they're like, "I need to get in." I'm like, "I'm fully booked. This has been on the market for 4 days. You had 4 days to get in here. I'm not extending this. You knew what the timeline was. I've already have X amount of offers in hand. I already have enough people in here."
Right. Is it strategic to be one of the last offers? It's kind of like the price is right. You bid highest.
No, the best offer. It's just going with like. In that example of where I had 14 offers, the first offer I got was the biggest.
And nobody beat it.
Nobody beat it.
But do they see how much the other offers are?
No.
Okay, there it is.
No one.
There it is.
Unless the sellers disclose, which is called rounds. The strategy is called rounds. So like what I mean by this is, say we host 4 days, right? And we collect 10 offers. The sellers might take the best 2 or 3 and be like, "Hey guys, we want to know if you can go a little higher." Second round, everyone goes a little higher. And then you make it the final 2 and say, "Hey guys, you're the final 2. How badly do you want it?" And they might go again. So third round.
And once again, they don't know what the other...
Nope. Not unless the sellers choose to disclose that information. The realtor cannot disclose that.
And can they ask for it to go higher if it's already above the asking price?
Yep. I've tried to buy houses that came and went, like that deadline came and went, and they got no offers. So I came in after writing an offer, and the sellers have countered $30,000 or $40,000 above ask, because that's what they thought they were going to get in competition, and that's the reason why they were selling. So I gave them, like, it happened recently where I gave someone 10, like, full list price, and they counted 30 grand over without going, but there were no other offers on the table. It was just me.
Yeah.
And they decided that that's what they were worth, and they had hoped to get in the market, and if they didn't get it, they weren't selling. So what they do, as soon as they didn't get what they wanted, they took their home off the market.
Interesting.
It's a strategy. It depends on what the sellers choose, right? And this is where people get misconstrued. The sellers and buyers dictate the experience, right? I've had plenty of clients where I've been like, if you want this house, you're going to have to write X amount of dollars over asking. In February and March, at the peak of his nonsense, it was $100,000 minimum, or don't bother. Plenty of people choose not to and walked away. I can't make you buy a house. I can only advise.
How bad you want it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? I can tell you the number that I'm seeing that gets you a win.
Mm-hmm.
And I can advise. But even then, I've written offers where I thought like, oh, I've got it. Only to find out I lost by $50,000.
Okay. So you represent one of the buyers, and then every other buyer in that
Yep.
has their own real estate agent,
Yep.
and you guys are basically competing.
Yep.
And the real estate agents can't speak to each other?
No.
And there's no, okay.
No, there's no collusion. That would we have a competition act that dictates that. That's all. It's against the law. We have it's in the Nova Scotia the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors bylaws, or in the Nova Scotia Real Estate Commission bylaw. They're in the bylaws. Like, there's no. That's just, it's fair trade.
What's a bylaw?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Bylaws, a clause in them to be good. Basically, tell you not to be a shitty human. That's what the bylaws are for. Don't be a dick. I call them "Don't be a dick."
Sorry, that was my best Ben Stiller.
So, like, that's kind of what we're seeing in terms of how competition works. And we talked about this the other day. Like, the market's in a lull right now.
It's in a lull.
We're nowhere near as hot. I don't know what it is in the last 2 or 3 weeks since we opened up on June 16th. We're down. We're not seeing nowhere near. Me and a few other realtors aren't seeing the same tractions we would get in our listings. We're
now,
down.
could it be the effects of the third wave in Nova Scotia?
The third wave poured water on it.
Mm-hmm. Because we were a haven, man.
And the travel restrictions put cold water on it.
Right.
But we were thinking that we had the idea that as soon as things open up again, we'd ramp up. I think people are just traveling. I think when the bubble opened up, a lot of people went home to see family and friends. And I think when we open up to Canada, which this is the day of recording of this is June 29th. So we open up to Canada tomorrow. So a lot of people will probably have vacations, things booked where they're going to go away and see family members that they haven't seen. So I've talked to a few agents this past weekend, and a few of us are under the idea, our theories, these are running theories. We can only go by what we see. So our running theory is that people are away, so less competition because things aren't selling as quickly, and we're starting to see price reductions again, which we didn't see for a while.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just kind of the market ebbs and flows. There are peaks and valleys. Now here's the thing, right? Someone might be thinking at home like, "Oh, the market's crashing. It's time to get in." Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, right? House prices have still gone up $130,000 from last year. So even if this is a valley and we're at a low point, you're still paying $100,000 at least more than you would last year.
Right. I mean, like all things, everything that goes up has to come down. So maybe this is a low point, but it could very well go back up.
It just depends where it settles, right? That's what I was trying to talk to you about this last year when I was trying to convince you to buy a house, and you were under the impression that we're in a bubble and that this won't last, and you're going to come in and swoop in when you were low, which a lot of people had that strategy. Here's my argument back then, and my argument still is today is, yeah, but where's low? Right? Like where is that? Did that mean, was your idea like, and this is just not you literal, you hypothetical, isn't like, were you hoping that the peak would be 400K and you'd swoop in at 250? Because what it's done is it went from 350, 360 to 480, 490. And if the low is 460, you're still out $100,000 in equity.
Yeah, no, I agree, and there could very well be a new low. It could never go as low as it was,
exactly
as it was before. Yeah. However, if you're not in any rush, you play the waiting game.
Exactly.
But at some point, if you want to be in the game, you got to buy in.
You got to get in the game.
So that will come.
Yeah, yeah. That's typically how the market's working right now, which is why you're seeing those bids.
Yeah.
And how you're hearing those stories of, oh my God, this sold for $350,000 over asking. Mm-hmm. Now we're gonna tackle sight unseen because you talked about viewings, and I really, this is kind of has become a thing where people think that Ontario and BC buyers are purchasing homes without viewing them. On the agreement of purchase and sale, the document you write an offer on, there are 2 boxes. One states in this box, having viewed this in person, you can check that. The other box states, having not viewed this home in person, you can check that. Just because they check haven't seen it in person, everyone is seeing a home virtually. You're getting FaceTime walkthroughs. You're getting video tours. You're like, the idea that people are buying houses cold is blasphemy. I've had 4 deals this year closed with, under those circumstances, sight unseen, that they got a 30-minute FaceTime walkthrough, and then I go through again and I record each level of the house and I send it to them, and including one video of the outside and of the neighborhood so that they have points of references to keep on their phones to refresh their memories on the house they're potentially purchasing. So they get a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Wow. You know what? Everyone I've talked to the market, like the hot market, the seller's market, has said sight unseen. And you just think, just people throwing money, oh, there's a house for sale. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
No.
So straight Zoom,
Zoom, FaceTime, pick a video, Skype.
Wow.
If anyone still uses Skype. This is what I'm saying. Like
I can picture you running around the neighborhood with a GoPro on your forehead.
Yeah, because I've done it.
Oh man,
yeah, because I've done it.
That's
I've
funny.
literally done it in a sense of like, yeah, it was because people were wanting to capitalize on the market or they had to make a move, so they had to. I can name 3 to 4 people right now who have withheld, who are just waiting for the borders to open and they're going to come over here and buy, but they're waiting to see things in person. Listen, I don't know a single person that has bought a house blind. They might have seen the pictures on MLS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sight unseen, that whole thing, it doesn't exist.
And now that leads me to my next question. Like I have my ideas why, many of them, but why Nova Scotia? Why are people flocking to Nova Scotia? Now, my guess, just to throw it out there, low COVID numbers.
Yep.
You sell your house in Ontario.
Yep.
You're getting a lot of money.
Yep.
Average.
Yep.
And coming here and you're buying a nicer house.
Yep.
Why Nova Scotia?
We're the last affordable hub in the country.
And that goes above PEI,
yes,
Newfoundland.
Yeah, because here's the
New
funny.
Brunswick.
You know what my number one question from out of province buyers is? Do you guys have good internet?
What?
That's my number one question. Out of province, people think we're in the Stone
Think
Age.
we live in the sticks?
I'm not kidding you. That's like the general impression. Wow. Anything past Montreal is hilarity. That's my actual, like when I talk to out of province buyers, it's always, do you guys have good internet in Nova Scotia? Yes, guys, we have 5. Yes, guys, we're going to have it. Like,
wow.
Yeah, we're in there. So when they realize we're not in the sticks, we have civilization, we're in a booming economy and things are on the up, then this is also going to impact the market because it's really simple. They sell their homes for a much more significant sum, get out a lot of cash, and they can come over here and purchase a much better home for much less. So the other thing that triggered the market was BC and Ontario buyers are educated in negotiating in a much different market than we are. So for them, they're used to bidding wars. They're used to waiving conditions. They're used to rounds. Like they're used to buying a house in like the most competitive environments in the whole country. When they were coming here, they were like, you can get an inspection? What do you mean you can get an inspection? Put that clause down. I only got to pay 50 grand over and there's not a second round. I only got to pay $100K. I just made 5. Here, I'll give the bank $400K. That way, my mortgage is actually $400,000 instead of $800,000, and that way we're good to go. You know
so
what?
This is all new to us.
This is brand new. Nova Scotians, our typical idea or assumptions were to never overpay for a house. Your parents have told you that. My parents told me that. Everyone's parents were always like, don't ever overpay for a house. Always negotiate. If you ever felt like you overpaid, you were embarrassed to tell everyone what you paid because they would be like, you overpaid. Here's the thing about real estate. 10 years ago in 2011, people thought houses were overpriced. 2015, people thought houses were overpriced. 1990, people thought houses were overpriced. People always think houses are overpriced because they think of it as when they purchased, aka our parents. Oh, when I was your age, I bought this house for $40,000. Great. The market's changed.
Big time. So
it's not a reflection of what the actual market is.
So this influx of people buying houses here from out of province, it's probably good for the economy, right?
Fantastic for the economy. Here's the other thing, right, that no one has picked up on, or a few people talk about. Nova Scotia, since like 2016 or 17, I'm not quite sure, you have to go back and check, has broken its immigration record from inside of Canada and its immigration record each year on a roll.
Man, I believe it. This is a beautiful place to live.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, people think it's just because of COVID.
Right.
Like when you bring up the numbers and stuff and how safe we were, this was already happening. COVID might have just put a little oil on the fire, but this was coming.
So does the average Nova Scotian, this amount of influx of people purchasing homes from out of province, do they like that? Do they like that they're jacking up the housing price?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Local Nova Scotians are not happy because they're now being forced to live elsewhere. Before this whole thing, the average home price was $350, $360. Now it's $470, $480, $490. It's a different thing. In fact, I heard that we're as high as $515 as of this month. The numbers haven't come out yet to confirm it, but like that's what the rumblings are. We're up to $510, $515 or something like that. Like the numbers have only been going up, and it puts more pressure on people to have larger down payments, and like how hard is it to get a down payment? How hard is it to get a closing cost? Like to have 5% of a purchase price, $400,000, that's $20,000 up front. A 10% is 45 is half of that, so 20, right? $20,000 up front. Like to come up with those numbers, you got to be very well managing with your money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's of course, which is why you're seeing now such a demand, a hot topic of affordable housing, because there are currently no subdivisions in development.
Is that right?
For single family homes, there are none.
Just all high rises going up, and
just condos and apartments right now. They haven't put up. There's one announced in East Hants that's 400 or 500 homes, but that's not enough to offset the market. And guess what? You're going to East Hants. And here's the other thing. Nova Scotians think East Hants is too far from Halifax. They don't want to do the drive. Ontario and BC, they don't care. They're completely used to a commute. When I say you're dealing with a different type of buyer, it's literally what you're dealing with.
Right.
They look at 30-minute drives as laughable. We look at 30-minute drives as the worst thing to ever commit in our lives.
It's true, man. Like traffic in other cities, especially.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a different your competition is a different education than you are.
Yeah. This is a treat to them.
Yeah. This is, oh my God. Are you kidding me? I have to pay $500,000 for a brand new 3,000 square foot home with all the amenities on private lake. Now you can't get that now, but like come a year ago, you could get that.
Yeah.
I'll give him 6. I'll give him 7. Like, I gotta drive 20 minutes to work and I work from home 3 days a week. Are you kidding me? I can load up a podcast. This one, by all means. You know what I mean, though? Like, you can, man, like, it's a different world.
I totally agree. I mean, and you see it. I mean, you see how expensive it is now. You didn't see the tents on Spring Garden or the small.
You didn't see those. They're there now.
It's incredible.
It's weird.
Yeah, man.
It's weird and heartbreaking.
So I mean, it's I guess the economy it's positive for, but it's tough to see that. It's hard. Downside of it.
It's hard, but like the city has to act. The city has to we've talked about this on our podcast. Like we had Habitat for Humanity on here who talked about affordable housing initiatives.
Right.
Like there are other things, and there are other people at play who can find a way to resolve this. I hope they do. And, there are different strategies that can be implemented. We talked about how about letting private developers build a 40-story in the middle of Halifax, but the first 8 stories are all affordable housing. 8 floors. So that way,
that would be huge.
The developers can get their money from the 32 others, but the 8 stay below market rents. The developers are happy because they get a brand new building with, cash flowing assets. Because private developers, listen, they built their whole business off of cash flow.
Right.
They're not gonna sacrifice the one thing that puts food on the table for them and their family. That's not how this works.
No, that's fair.
No one's gonna sacrifice their livelihood to be a martyr unless they're dying. Not to get really grim, but so let the nonprofits run like a Habitat for Humanity or like Add Some House. Let them run the 8 floors because they're accustomed to facilitating those things for affordable housing people, and they understand how to facilitate those characters in and out of those buildings so that no one's taking advantage of the process. Private developers are happy they're making their money. Nonprofits have access to more houses that they can facilitate transactions to, and the city then can solve a crisis, which then alleviates the pressure put on the housing market by the lack of supply. The lack of supply is your problem because now you have that analogy of one house on the street, 10 idiots out front waving offers. That's a real thing. You just don't see them because you're in and out for 30 minutes of a viewing, but that's a real thing of you can't, as buyers at the peak of this, I was advising my clients, you can't go back to the table for this. You can go back for this because they have to disclose this. So like high ticket items, hot water tank, water, roof, like those are, you can go back for, but go back for half. Don't go for all, because just picture outside this door 10 idiots with offers just waiting for you to mess up. Just waiting for you to bite too hard. That's what it was. So when it came down to it, like it was like, how badly do you need a house? How badly do you want a house? And the people that got in who were told that they spent way too much on a house, the market has now forgiven them because we're still going up. And here's the crazy thing. The people who have sat out are losing equity every month. Just that's like at one point, the average house prices are going up $12,000 a month. So if you were sat out of the market, you were losing $12,000 a month. Wow. Think of that. Like, just imagine being able to buy
incredible numbers.
Imagine being able to buy Tesla stock before Tesla went huge. Would you not? You know what I mean? And I'm not like, I'm not trying to facilitate anyone purchasing a house right now. You can make your own decision. But what I'm saying is, at the time when people were I had clients who weren't willing to write the offers to win houses, and they were in the market for 6 months. And after 6 months, do the math, 12 times 6, 72 grand.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, hindsight is 20/20.
And here's the
kick yourself to the curb.
And here's the crazy thing: when you roll into month 7, they're like, "Holy crap! What's the number?" Yeah. And then they write the $100,000 over, and they've just, you know what I mean? Like,
Justin, man, I've seen like you said, it correlates perfect to the stock market.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna wait till it dips a bit, and then it goes up a couple bucks. I'm
yeah.
gonna wait a bit more, and then next thing you know, like you said, Tesla, which is valued like amazing amount.
Yeah.
But
so I brought up stocks, and I know that's the analogy you will get, because you're actually in that game.
So you have to, I guess, as long as it makes sense on paper and you do due diligence, then I guess pull the trigger, right?
So like,
because you're gonna regret it.
Well, it's funny because this saying's been coming up a lot on the podcast, but it's true. The best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago or today. That's like the most known statement in real estate.
Man, that's funny.
It's like the most common phrase. When's the best time to buy real estate? 10 years ago or today? It's always that's literally, and it's because like it's always like, we haven't seen prices like this before. No, but they said that in the 90s. Mm-hmm. The 2000s, the 10s, they've said, like, how many times do you want to hear the same statement before you realize that, like, and the weird thing about real estate is you attribute, like, I know your personality, we've talked about this off air. You attribute real estate to supply and demand. So high supply, low demand, prices go down. Low supply, high demand, prices go up, right? Here's the weird thing about real estate that no one ever takes into consideration: location. They can build another 1,000 homes, 2,000 homes, 3,000 homes. They could flood the market with homes, right? New subdivisions all across Halifax. Where do you think those are going to go? Where's the space for them? They're going East Hants, you're going Mount Uniacke, you're going out past Peggy's Cove. They cannot recreate location. Mm-hmm. They cannot recreate the air in the condo building or the condominium you buy. They cannot recreate the location of downtown Halifax. Yes, those 3,000 homes would offset the market and help shorten supply. What do you think that does, though, for the inner city homes? If those are brand new builds out there, they'll all sell 250, 300,000. What do you think in here price points are going to be then? If those are selling at 253, if I'm in North End Halifax, what do you think that does for them? Because they have a better location with higher of closer amenities, they go up. No one ever takes into account location is the thing that they can't recreate.
So even though it floods the market, those ones will go up.
They have to, because they're worth more than by location's sake.
Right.
They're worth more because people want to be in the downtown core, which is where you always want the demand. Real estate is not just simply supply and demand. There is a third component in terms of location that they cannot recreate.
No, that's fair. I do rent or will buy solely on location.
Exactly.
I love the south end of Halifax.
Yep.
Where I currently live.
Yeah. The rent. Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, rent and location is everything. Right. So like, here's an example I could use for you, because I understand you're in this game as well. Let's take basketball cards. Michael Jordan rookie card came out 1986. They could flood the market with another 10,000 Michael Jordan rookie cards in rotation today. Do you believe, yes or no, that would only increase the value of the 1986 one? because it's more rare, because it's actually authentic of that year. It's a location of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's a location. That's where people get this confused in terms of like bubbles popping and things like that, market shifting, supply goes up, demand goes down, that we'll see real estate prices drop. You might see them drop across the board, but they start building 3,000 more homes and they're selling 253. You best believe Halifax Peninsula, downtown Toronto is going to sell for more. It's only going to solidify the price.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you
Right?
think about it. It does, yeah.
That's just something that people don't take into consideration. They don't even think about, because we don't talk about it enough as realtors, right? So those, and like, these are all so many dynamics of the market, of what actually happens in the market, right? So that's, funny enough, that's actually step 2, finding the house, figuring out how much it costs. The market dictates your experience, as we talked about. Step 3 is negotiate. I used to call it negotiations. Now it's just bidding. When you're bidding a house, there's a few things you can do. One thing we do, or I do, is we'll bring up the sales data of the last 60 to 90 days for the neighborhood. And we'll say, okay, the average home price is selling at $75,000 over asking. So that means you got to come in at 80 if you want a chance. Do you want a guarantee? 90 to 100? But I can never rule out dick face. I can't. There's like I call it going rogue. There might always be someone in the bidding work going rogue who just wants a house and doesn't care because he's written 10 offers and failed.
Right.
So he might be like, I just want a house, 130. And you're like, man, come on, my guy.
Oh, man. Those dicks ruin it for everyone.
It's like someone just screaming Leroy Jenkins and just ruining it for the whole game.
Man, love it.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
Leroy! And just going out there and facilitating.
Leroy.
Exactly my point. And they're saying on the side, like, damn it, Leroy, what are you doing for? You know what I mean? Because you can never rule out someone just from a different place thinking, or a different time, or you don't know their situation. They might need to be in a house tomorrow and they're like, I need a house. Just write the offer, put the number on paper that gets the house. And like, the other thing is appraisals. So we talked about financing. There's 2 levels of financing. You get approved first and the bank has to approve the house, right? So if you're paying X over X over X over asking, the bank's going to ask for an appraisal. An appraisal is just simply looking at the comparables in the area to make sure it supports the purchase price. Everything was getting appraised and passing.
Oh, that's good.
Well, what does that tell you? The value's there. So when everyone's like, the market's really hot, if banks are giving you money for it, I know everyone likes to think banks are crooks and all these things. They want to take your money. Banks give a shit about their investments more than most institutions on the face of the earth. So if they're willing to give you the money, that there's enough data behind it to support it.
It's a good indicator, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So the appraisals are passing. So, and like, that was the thing in February and March when this thing was at its peak. It was like, go 100K over, and they're like, you're setting a new market record. I'm like, give it a day. A comp will show up next door. It'll show. And that was what was happening. We were always, a comp would show up and you'd be like, oh, there it is.
What's the highest over asking you've seen this year?
350.
350.
350.
Wow.
There's someone else could be doing more. Someone like,
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
The highest I've seen and been told is 350.
Right.
The highest offers I've heard is 48.
48
on one house.
That's a lot of offers.
The anxiety of going through 48 offers with, like, it takes an hour going through 10. 48, you're there with your client for like the whole day. You might as well order some takeout and get the wine and just like start discussing. And it's overwhelming because you got to go through conditions and who's got the best conditions, who's got this or that, which leads me to the next thing. So step 3 is negotiation. Step 4 I call conditions or firming. So condition, for example, home inspection. When you write an offer, you can ask for a home inspection to be done by a certain time. So if you and I were writing an offer today, June 29th, 2021, we might have the condition of home inspection, today's Tuesday, that we have to get a home inspection done by end of day Friday. That means we have until end of day Friday to get our home inspector in, go through due diligence, and declare that we're dissatisfied with the results. The agreement of purchase and sale is self-assuming, meaning if you don't say boo, it assumes everything's okay. You have to declare dissatisfaction, and you have to provide a proof reason why. You can walk away from any deal, and you can just disclose what condition was your reason for walking away.
As subtle as it can be.
That literally,
like super subtle.
You can literally just say home inspection.
Okay.
You don't even have to mention it if you don't want to. So you find out the room's gone. All right, cool, I'm out. Termination letter, sign it, home inspection. I would recommend negotiating because you have leverage to now negotiate, but it's up to you as the buyer. So firming or conditions is step 4. On Viewpoint, it goes active, pending, sold. When it says pending, that means conditional sale. That means sale pending upon conditions. Pending just means buyers are going through their due diligence, securing financing, home inspections, insurance, lawyer review. There's 1,000,001 conditions.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's orange when it's pending on Viewpoint.
Yeah, something like that. I think it's yellow or orange. I'm colorblind though, so it doesn't help. But that is step 4. If you get out of your conditions before they firm means the dates listed in the agreement have come and gone. If you get out before you firm, you get your deposit back. If you get out after you firm, after those dates have passed, you lose your deposit and you might be held liable to lawsuits from the sellers because they might have bought a house, right? They might have been waiting. They might have been waiting for you. They might have been waiting to sell their house first so that they could buy their next house. So they might have a bridge loan from their bank to get them from point A to point B, and you've just ruined everyone's life because you've neglected the sale.
So when you say firm?
Firm.
So that's like the closing date.
Nope.
It's not the
Nope,
closing
that just
date.
means it is now assumed that buyer is buying the house and the seller is selling the house. So like you might have a week for conditions, right? A week to firm, but your closing date might not be until October. So step 5.
So firm is like I'm buying the house.
Yes.
It's pretty much done.
Pretty much
we
done.
Just have to.
We have to go through the formality of setting the money.
Okay.
So closing date, step 5, closing it. That's the final step of buying a house. You go in either the night before or the morning of for one last walkthrough inspection. Because listen, if the example of you're buying this thing in October, we haven't been in since July 2nd off of our conditions of home inspection. That was the last time we were in. The sellers have had it for 3 months. God knows what has happened. We had to walk through and make sure the house is in the same condition as when we were last in it, and your appliances or everything that you negotiated for is still there and are in working order as of the last home inspection or the last time you were in it, if you waived inspection.
In the period between the firm and the closing date is decided upon by the buyer and seller.
Yes.
It could be 2 days. It could be 3 months. It could be... Okay.
Entirely negotiable.
Okay.
So we'll go in the morning of the night before. It's usually half an hour. You're usually flicking on every light. You're turning on every appliance. You're doing a quick walkthrough. You're turning on every faucet to make sure this thing works and this thing, if it all goes well, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you want to proceed to closing? You're going to tell me yes or no. Yes, I call your lawyer. You call your lawyer. Tell them you're happy. Release the funds and transfer the deed to your name. Takes a few hours, so don't ever order your moving van for the day of closing because it might be not closed until the next day. It just depends when the money goes because transferring large sums of money takes a bit, right? Banks don't open. Usually all the money goes wired through Toronto, which is 11. They don't open until 11 a.m. our time. So that you got between 11 a.m. and typically most lawyers go home 4:35, so that's your window to get this shit done. So you're happy, money gets transferred. Lawyer sends an email, congratulations, we're now closed. You may release the keys. I can give you the keys now and you can start moving in. Other side.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Right? We go in, something happened overnight. Maybe a pipe burst. These things happen. On episode 2 with Richard Bureau for Lawyer Review, he explained a story of someone dropping a grand piano down a flight of staircase the night before closing because they were moving out.
Oh, man.
So we come into this home and it's in complete disarray because someone dropped a grand piano. Really simple. Do you want to proceed to close? Well, no, I don't want to move into this. Okay, call the lawyers. We still call the lawyers because they're going to get involved. There will be, typically they'll negotiate or do a holdback to compensate you to get the repair done and to get the contractors in to repair the work so you're moving into what you were buying originally. So they might knock off 10, 20 grand, depending to fix the whole thing. Either way, you do still get the house in the condition that it was agreed upon. The other way, which I've heard horror stories from other agents, hasn't happened to me yet, but I've heard horror stories of clients walking into houses on the day of closing and just going, nah.
What?
No.
So is it, and are they liable?
Oh yeah, they lose their deposit and they're liable to lawsuit, but they've just gone, nah, I don't want it anymore, and they left.
Weird.
Some people.
Yeah.
That is Buying a house 101. You got to finance it, find it, negotiate, bid it, firm it, close it.
I mean, broken down into steps, it's pretty clear.
It's and like I always, one of the most common questions is, how quickly can you close a house? I've done it in 10 days.
No shit.
Yeah, it's not.
Wow.
It just depends on the conditions. It entirely depends on it. If you have, like, the 10 days was cash, so it's like they don't need financing, which means it's just due diligence, so inspection, insurance. That can be done in 2 days if you can get everything lined up. Like those, it entirely depends on that. Entirely depends on the situation between the seller and the buyer, right? How long? What's the farthest closing you've had, Jason? 4 months, 5 months, maybe. What's the longest closing you've seen, Jason? Oh, a year. Like something went on the market in March and they asked for a closing date of November 30th.
Oh wow.
They got it. It's sold. It's gone.
So their firm would be end of March maybe.
End of March.
They have to wait 8-9 months.
Yep. The buyers do. Yep.
Wow.
There might be a reason.
lot can happen in 8-9 months, man.
There might. Yeah. Trust me.
But a half an hour walkthrough,
I'm telling you.
make sure everything's
That's it.
turning on.
Cover your ass. Make sure the lights are on. Make sure everything's working.
Man, okay.
That is like literally how to buy a house.
101.
101, the whole thing. First time home buyer.
Well, man, it's a good thing I have this recorded.
I mean, it's only been 2 years of me trying to do this for your stupid ass. And for those of you who don't know, like, we've known each other for years. We're very close friends. I'm allowed to call him stupid.
It's true. It's very true.
The other thing is we could talk about condos. I'm not going to get into that because we actually did a whole episode on condos already. It's episode 22 with Andrew Murray, I think.
Got it.
I'm just plugging in episodes for
for sure.
Because like for first time home buyers, this is a topic for a lot of people who don't know how to buy a house, right? So it's like episode 1 is mortgages, 2 is lawyer review, 5 is home inspection, 6 is septic inspection, 7's moving from Ontario to Nova Scotia. There's more in there for them that like we remember how I said you were the inspiration?
Yeah.
My first 10 episode run, like I made sure I covered everything, how to buy a house for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I've listened to them.
I made you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lived with me when I was figuring out how to do this whole thing, and I would make you. It's actually funny because I made you listen to like the first 4 before I ever put them out.
Honored. Like, now, yeah. So this is nice. It's kind of like a condensed version.
Yeah.
Of everything.
Yep.
What would you say to somebody who likes renting for whatever reason?
Yep.
And
doesn't want to buy?
No, but wants to buy a passive income Airbnb.
Yeah. For someone that likes renting, first and foremost, there's nothing wrong with renting. I'll never listen. I rent. I'm still renting. I don't own a house yet. Now that's for different reasons because, like I said at the beginning, getting a mortgage when you're self-employed is a nightmare. So please do it while you're at a job. There's nothing wrong with renting. My biggest thing is understanding the sides of both buying and renting. If you're informed, you can make a conscious decision that best suits you and your interests. So with you're renting. You've already said you love South End Halifax. You love all the amenities. Therefore, you rent in South End because you like being close to bars and restaurants and a downtown scene. You're a very social guy. You go out all the time. Not all the time, but often enough. That's completely fine. Don't worry about it. As long as you're aware that you could be gaining equity when you don't want to, that's fine. It's completely up to you. You understand now how the process works. By all means, do it. I'm never gonna knock renting, man. Most renters take care of everything. The good ones, anyway. They take care of all the crap that goes on with owning a home. They do the updates, the maintenance. They change the windows. Blah 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 blah. They're supposed to do these things if you have a good landlord. That's wonderful. It takes ease of mind. They shovel the driveway. Do you want to shovel the driveway? Let's be honest here. Not a lot of people want to get up in the morning of a snowstorm and shovel their car to go to work. So renting, by all means. Passive income building through real estate, investment properties. Airbnbs are a phenomenal tool. I would recommend episode 14 with Avery Birch because he runs and operates a Airbnb business, and he runs and operates, I think it's over 60 now Airbnbs throughout all of HRM. So like that's how I would recommend that. I would recommend episode 21, which is Burr with Cameron Katzberg. He runs and operates an Airbnb in his own personal home out in Hubli, and I know he's always happy to share what he's done. Passive income and wealth generation through real estate is amazing. I would argue that the word passive is mildly misleading. You can't just buy an asset and leave it alone and expect it to make cash flow. When you go into investment properties, they are first and foremost a business and they need to be maintained. Now, this business can operate with maybe 10, 5, 8, 9, 10 hours work a week, but it still takes 5, 8, 9, 10 hours a week until you put those systems in place so that thing can run smoothly enough where you only have to check in on it once a month, where you can watch those numbers. You can make sure you have a team. Property managers are a great way to do it, where they can handle the asset for you. The people that get burned through real estate investing in my time are the people that buy a property, rent it out to family or friends, and don't look at it for a year or two. And they show up on a doorstep being like, hey, how's my house? And they realize that the roof's gone, there's drywall damage, there's water damage, and that the renters were bad tenants. But that I blame the investor for not understanding that you just bought a $250,000 asset and not managing it. That's on you. I'm not gonna excuse the behavior of the tenants because that's just being a crap human. But like, you can't tell me you're spending $250,000 on a fancy box and you're not gonna manage it.
So make sure you have at least a bit of a passion,
It depends, right? Because like passion can come from so many things. You don't have to be passionate about real estate to appreciate passive income.
Okay, passionate about money then. Well, if you buy a good investment but don't take care of it, then that's on you.
That's on you. So it's entirely on you. Airbnbs are wonderful but it depends on the Airbnb. You can because most Airbnbs are seasonal operators, so they're high peaks in summer, low peaks in winter. The trick is finding something that peaks year round. Like my fiance and I were looking at Airbnbs recently, and there was one just by Chester on its own island. You had to get there by ferry. And it's really cool. We were like, oh, that's a really unique experience. We could pull the trigger on this and turn this into a really cool Airbnb. I had pulled the plug on it because I had realized after I did my research that I wasn't quite sure how to sell it as a winter experience. Summer experience, I could easily get a little dock, slap a boat on there or something, like create a outdoor living experience and be like, cool, summertime hang, 8 to 10 people, go party. How do I sell this in the winter? I don't want a negative cash flowing asset in the winter, which is why you could have your long-term leases as well, that are your cash flow guaranteed year round because you're in long-term leases. If you're going in that way though, there is right now a 2% rent cap on Halifax. So getting up rents, and with purchase prices being as high as they are, your cost to get in the door, you would always have to bring up the rents because you're paying the friggin' premium. So to do that and to get them cash flowing, then I would argue against that. Real estate investing it's understanding what you want out of your investment. My personal rule, which I've gotten from successful real estate investors I've spoken to, Tyler Sellers, episode 8, Cameron Katzford, 21, Avery, 14, Danica Coakley, 15, like all these people have already taught me so much about it. And there's a whole wealth of resources out there. Ian Armour, 23, you and he 24. Those are episodes that we've done on the podcast, and so I learned from them. When I purchase my investment properties, it's going to be $1,000 a month net, or I don't purchase it.
Right,
because it's cash flow.
It just makes sense.
It's a different thing. It's cash flow. If you're buying investment properties, your number one priority is cash flow. If you're not buying cash flow, then your other play is equity gain. But ever heard the term house poor? Mm-hmm. Do you want all your money wrapped up in your house and you can't do anything else? Exactly. So net cash flow, but that's the difference between investment properties and buying to live in. Buying to live in, there's so many more facets that go into it, like paint colors and decor and floor plans and layouts and location and size and amenities and blah, blah. Investment property is just cash. Does it work? Okay, well then great. You know what I mean?
I guess it's all relative. It's all what you want.
It's what you want out of the experience. Yeah. My thing is you're stepping into a business.
Right.
Too many people try and think that, I'm going to purchase this asset and it'll just, give me money.
You can't get something for nothing.
Exactly. That's my rant on investment properties.
No, I respect that. I guess for me, it was like, how do you go about step one? But after this whole conversation,
I gave you 1 through 5.
That's what I'm saying. It's easily broken down that Anyone can do it.
Anyone.
You just have to do it.
Little thing about Airbnbs, don't tell the bank you're buying an Airbnb.
Interesting.
They don't finance them. They don't like them. They hate them. So don't.
But it's not like it's unpredictable income.
Don't. And if you're buying an investment property and you tell the bank you're buying an investment property, usually the cash flow created by the property, Tower Sellers taught us this in episode 8, they only look at 50% of the revenue income, not 100%.
Shout out to Tower Sellers,
who we both know. But that they only look at 50% rather than 100% because they take into account a very, very high vacancy rate. Vacancy is when your units are empty and you're not making any money off them.
Interesting. So would they find it suspect if you owned a home and then you bought a second home? Would they be like, what are you doing?
Depends, right? If you own a home and you bought a second one, they'd be like, are you moving into it? Is it a home for you to live in? And if that's the case, good, you're 5% down.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, and you don't plan on moving, it's 20% down because they want you to have more skin in it because it's an investment property. It's not a home for you to live in.
Interesting.
Yeah. If you're buying an investment property outright, you don't plan on living in it, it's 20% down. Because
that's helpful to know.
Because they want you to have skin in the game. And at 5%, it's too little. They think that's too little skin in the game for you to foreclose.
So once again, if I'm renting and I buy solely for the purpose of renting that unit,
yep.
Just pretend like it's my for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's kind of like a gray area.
Right? I'm not going to advise anyone to mislead or talk to a bank differently, but like that is what it is.
Yeah.
In a sense of they're not. Yeah. I mean, if you want to buy at 5%, I mean, you can, there's no rules or written laws to how long you have to live in it for. So it might be like, I've tried living in here for a month. I didn't like it. I rent it again.
That brings up, sorry to jump over. What's the rule? Something about like, if you buy a place, you have to live in it for 6 months, in order, something to do with taxes.
I don't know about that.
Does that ring a bell?
You hear it.
Yeah.
But like, I haven't heard from a bank or mortgage broker that it's a rule or something or a law, but like for tax purposes, it might very well be. Ask an accountant. I haven't asked the question.
Okay.
I'm on it. I mean, I know a good one. Yeah, I know a good one I can get you in touch with who does Airbnbs and investment properties and stuff for clients.
Okay. Yeah. That would be helpful.
Any other questions before we get out of here?
You know what, man? I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
I'm glad you came on.
Man, that was fun. I haven't seen you in 5 months?
No, December.
6 months? Lockdowns?
December.
Man, wild.
December. And you lived here before you moved out of my apartment in December.
That is also correct.
Lived together through 2 lockdowns.
Thick and thin, man. Thick and thin.
Just a little context here. I do want this out here for this. Remember when you moved in February 2020 and you were going to go to backpacking in Europe in April?
Correct.
And then you never left?
That is also correct. Yeah, that would have been messy.
All right, Chris, I'm going to let you go. Love you to death. Thank you for doing this.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, buddy. Thank you. If you're a first-time home buyer and have more questions about the home buying process, you can reach me at 902-220-7357 or jason.paul@kw.com. Thanks again. Bye.